What's the longest journey it's possible to make? Maybe walking from the southern tip of South America to the northern tip of North America? That's been done before and it took almost 2,500 days to complete. Or you could do the same, then cross the Bering Strait and then go all the way across Eurasia. Someone is working on that one as we speak, though admittedly they're not doing it all in one go, but still that's pretty impressive. Now if you wanted to do the same thing but make it even longer, you could skip out Europe and go all the way down to the southern tip of Africa. Not sure if that one's been done before. Of course you could make that even longer if you then went from Africa all the way back to the southern tip of South America. Unfortunately though, you can't walk across the ocean unless the entire ocean freezes, in which case climate change is well and truly won. But what if you had to do a journey that was longer? Still on foot, but longer. Much, much longer. How long could a journey be before a human being actually loses their mind? Let's talk about it. Okay, let's put this video into the concept of a thought experiment. Imagine you live in some distant future civilization, and there are two features of this civilization that are relevant. First off, all the people are immortal. Otherwise, they're biologically human, but they're immortal. So they live forever. No one ever dies, not anymore. At least not unless they choose to. You know, maybe there's a little switch on the back of your head that if you flick it, sometime in the next 10 years you'll just die in your sleep, just to provide an option to people that have had enough with being alive. But otherwise, you don't die. You only die if that switch is flipped. An interesting question already would be, if you can choose how old you want to be, how old would people live? 100 years? A couple of 100 years? 1,000? 10,000? How many years old would the average person be? The second important thing about this civilization is that they're capable of manufacturing a special type of material. A material that just happens to have all the properties required for this thought experiment to work. And this material allows them to build a path anywhere. A path that can be walked. And this far future interstellar empire punishes those guilty of committing the worst crimes known to humanity by forcing them to walk down the path. And until they complete their walk down the path, they cannot flick their own switch to end their own life. They have to be immortal and experience every single step of the journey down the path. You might think that doesn't sound so bad, right? Like, how long is this path? Well, depends how much they want to punish you. My question is, how long would this path have to be in order for the person that starts this journey to not be the same person that finishes it? Or even to not be human anymore, in some sense. To be so psychologically altered by the experience that they're just left a kind of shell-shocked mess of a person afterwards. Like, what does glimpsing a tiny fraction of infinity actually do to a person? In this thought experiment, let's imagine 15 different convicts, each convicted of incrementally worse crimes. As for what their crimes were exactly, I don't know. Maybe they went around dipping babies in buckets of paint or something. It doesn't really matter. The first convict doesn't have it so bad. This guy's forced to walk the circumference of the Earth, which is 40,000 kilometers. Now, we're going to make some assumptions. We're going to say that they walk at 3 miles per hour, which is roughly the average walking speed for a healthy adult. And let's say that they walk for 16 hours every day. So basically, in a 24-hour period, they sleep for 8 hours, and then they immediately get up, start walking, and do not stop until it's time to sleep again. Under those conditions, this person is going to walk 48 miles per day, about 77 kilometers. So how long do you think it's going to take them to cover the circumference of the Earth? With our assumptions, it'll be a bit less than a year and a half. Quite a long time, but not actually that bad. In our own reality, many people get much longer prison sentences than that. So walking the circumference of the Earth actually isn't that bad, provided you don't die of blisters. But what about the next guy's sentence, which is walking from the Earth to the Moon? This is a much steeper sentence. At around 250,000 miles away, the Moon is going to take over 13 years to walk to. Pretty crazy, but again, not that insane in terms of length of prison sentences. So what's a longer journey than that? Something that a human could still walk within their lifetime? Well, how about walking Saturn's rings? That's over 500,000 miles, and it's going to take you about 31 years, which is still within the realm of prison sentences that people do actually get. So next time you hear about someone getting incarcerated for 30 years, just imagine the fact that they could have walked around the rings of Saturn in the amount of time they've been sitting in a single room. It's kind of crazy. The next guy is going to have to walk around the entire circumference of the Sun, which is 2.7 million miles, or 4.4 million kilometers. This is the first one that actually becomes slightly unworkable for us in reality, at least in terms of how long it would take, because this is going to take over 150 years to accomplish. Bear in mind that sunspots can be anywhere from like dozens of miles to like 100,000 miles across. People really be forgetting how fucking massive the Sun is. Just be thankful the Earth doesn't orbit Stephenson 218, which has a circumference of 5.8 billion miles, would take the speed of light itself nearly 9 hours to circle around, remembering of course that the Earth is only 8 light minutes away from our Sun, and which would take a human between 10 and 15 million years to walk around. Speaking of which, the next unlucky son of a fuck has to walk from the Earth to the Sun, which is a distance of over 90 million miles, or about 150 million kilometers. Interestingly, you could argue that an actual human has traveled further than this before. Russian astronaut Valery Polyakov covered a total distance of about 187 million miles, or 300 million kilometers, when he was inside of the Mir space station, which made over 7,000 orbits around the Earth when he was on it. Unfortunately though, our condemned guy is going to be walking his distance, which is going to take 5,300 years. To beat Valery's record, we're going to have to go to the next prisoner, which is going to have to walk from the Sun to Neptune. Sorry to interrupt, this is just a quick message to say, statistically speaking, you're probably not subscribed, so I'll make you a deal. Press the subscribe button and I won't come over to your house and do this. Alright, thanks, back to the video. From the Sun to the Earth was 5,300 years on foot. How long do you think it's going to take to get to Neptune? Congrats if you guessed 160,000 years. This journey is going to take so long that it's about the same amount of time that modern human beings have existed, full stop. I mean, exactly where the line is kind of vague. It might go back another couple 100,000 years, but, you know, more or less. Now, the thing is, after Neptune, there's kind of not really much out there. Fair enough, there's some dwarf planets and stuff, but so far we've been going like 1 or 2 orders of magnitude bigger each time, but there really isn't much of note for quite a long time when you go beyond Neptune. So what about the edge of the Oort cloud? How long would it take you to walk there? The Oort cloud you can think of as basically the edge of the solar system, at least in some respects. Exactly where that line is depends on how you define it, but if you use the edge of the Oort cloud, it's actually well over a light year away. With the figures I'm using, it's going to take you over 500 million years to walk, not even out of our solar system. At least by some definition, you will still be in the same solar system after 500 million years. I don't know why that's so staggering to me. Of course, walking is going to take a long time, but Jesus Christ, 500 million? 500 million. That's to not even leave where we are now. Nuts. Just pause for a second and ask yourself, what would a person's psychology be like after they have been forced to do that? I imagine whatever is left of their mind would be incredibly alien. No living thing that has ever existed has gone through anything even remotely like that experience. And the concept of being forced to walk for 500 million years into just pitch blackness and experiencing essentially no progress whatsoever. Even the stars in the sky would barely move position after that entire period of time. Well, at least they wouldn't move due to us getting closer to them. I'm sort of assuming that everything in the natural world is frozen in place during these walks, because otherwise, for example, walking from the Earth to the Moon would be difficult because the Moon would be rotating around the Earth. So if you assume that everything is frozen in place while you're walking towards it, then yeah, very little in the entire night sky would actually change even after 500 million years of walking. Holy shit, how could it get worse than that? Well, you could try walking to the nearest star system. Buckle in, because that's going to take you 1.5 billion years, which is actually not that much further than the edge of the Oort cloud in the grand scheme of things. It's funny, the Oort cloud goes really quite far out into what you could arguably consider interstellar space. Really depends where you draw the line as to where the edge of the solar system is. Anyway, Alpha Centauri is about 4 light years away, so we're getting up into astronomically significant distances, but there are other places in the galaxy. A lot of other places in the galaxy, as a matter of fact, the most distance of which you can see with the naked eye is 16,000 light years away, which on foot would take you 5.5 trillion years, which some of the more observant amongst you will realize is hundreds of times longer than the entire universe has even existed. I think this is where we really start to see how horrifyingly large the universe really is, because normally we express distances like this in terms of light years, or parsecs, or astronomical units, but these massive units are just taking something that's also borderline incomprehensible and just saying, yeah, well, one of that is one of these units. But when you're really forced to put it in these human terms, in how long it would take if you're just putting one foot in front of the other as the oxygen-breathing monkey person that wants to walk around, hit things with a stick, eat things and fuck stuff that you are, then just the other planets in our solar system exist beyond such unfathomable gulfs of nothingness. It's insane. It's such an incredible privilege to live in a period of history where we think of these distances as surmountable. We've sent stuff on trajectories out of the solar system. Voyager 1 eventually will be further from Earth than all the things that we've talked about so far. Mammals built that on Earth. That's fucking nuts. Anyway, we're not done yet, because the next criminal is going to be walking from the Sun to the center of the Milky Way, about 30,000 light years, 157 quadrillion miles, or 253 quadrillion kilometers, which is going to take about 9 trillion years. Really, anything after a trillion is just completely incomprehensible. There isn't much to compare these numbers to anymore, so let's wrap up the last few. If you wanted to walk all the way across the Milky Way galaxy, that is about 100,000 light years, which is going to take you 30 to 35 trillion years. The next guy is going to be forced to walk from the Milky Way to the Andromeda Galaxy, which is 2.5 million light years, a feat that is going to take 800 or 900 trillion years. If you wanted to walk from the Milky Way to the nearest galaxy in another galactic group, which I think is about 11 million light years away, that's going to take you about 3.5 quadrillion years. If you wanted to walk from the Milky Way to the center of the Laniakea supercluster, which is the supercluster of galaxies that we're a part of, that's 250 million light years away, so that's going to take you 84 quadrillion years to walk. And finally, our worst offender, I don't know, maybe you dropped 2 babies in buckets of paint, is going to have to walk from the Earth to the edge of the observable universe, which is quite literally the longest comprehensible journey. Of course, by the time he got there, it wouldn't be the edge of the observable universe anymore, partly because the universe would have expanded, and partly because the edge of the observable universe is just the edge from whatever position you're currently standing in. But details. Let's say you walk the 46.5 billion light years to the edge of the observable universe. That journey, made on foot by a human being, would take about 15 or 16 quintillion years. And that pretty much summarizes it. What does this tell us? Not much, really. It's hard to comprehend what living this long and taking this long to accomplish one task would do to a human brain. I mean, once you're in the quadrillions of years, we're talking timescales that dwarf almost every physical process that occurs anywhere in the entire cosmos, and walking to the edge of the observable universe isn't even quadrillions, it's quintillions of years, which is almost as long as it feels to sit through a Nickelback concert. Speaking of things I'm going to make you sit through, allow me to say thank you to my elite level supporters: Thunderbolt 22A10, who can clap in Portuguese; Nomad Greg, who was fired from the M&M's factory for throwing out all the W's; Andrew Maul, whose nipples were killed in a freak canoeing accident; John Bejarano, who decided to stop colliding with hadrons; JDK, who knew they'd broken their time machine when instead of time moving forward or backward it started moving northeast; Mutantous Doom, who had me come over to their house but managed to do that before I could; Nikita Lurie, whose posterior is proportioned preposterously; Aaron Rowe, who placed 34th in their own look-alike contest; Bonk Chunk, who keeps a weasel in their pant leg at all times; That One Boy, whose favourite pastime is rolling their eyes into the back of their head and performing a series of complex ululations; Trenton Coldwell, whose real name is Pacific and after whom the ocean is actually named; Jimbo Quiz, whose carpet matches the drapes; Draco91, whose party trick is summoning a vortex; Surreal Melody, who's known throughout western Kazakhstan as a beast not to be trifled with; Enoch Trismegistus, who regularly speaks with God but only talks about the weather; and thanks to all my other supporters too. Don't forget to join the Patreon or the channel membership if you want to be featured in my video credits or chat on the Discord, and as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Over and out.